Hey guys, welcome back to the Read Like a Man podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about this book, The 32 Principles by Rener Gracie. It is a book that I would absolutely put in the buy now category if you were at all interested in it. It is something you will want to have a physical copy of. So I want to start off talking about what makes this book special. And the first point that I want to hit here is that Rener Gracie is the man who invented BJJ in the first place back in the 1920s. This was Rener's grandfather, and he was a small man. He was 5'5", 140 some pounds, and he needed to find a way that he could engage in combat with people who were bigger and stronger than him, because almost everybody was, in a way that would equal him being successful most of the time. And so he started to put together this system of what became BJJ. So then Rener Gracie is his grandson. Rener's father was the guy who started the Ultimate Fighting Championship. His uncle was the one who won the first two UFC fights and really kind of exploded BJJ onto the world stage. And their family has been teaching this martial art for years now. And so it's really, really cool to hear the backstory behind all of that and see how this tradition is just carried on through 3 generations of this family. But my favorite thing about this book is that it melds the mental and the physical aspects of what it's trying to teach, unlike any book that I've ever read. And I'm going to delve more into that in just a minute. But it's utterly unique from any other book that I think I have ever read. I cannot think of anything that was the same kind of experience as I had reading this book. So starting off, I definitely want to give you my favorite quote from it, which was in the final chapter, the Grandmaster Principle. And in here, Rener said, "To become a Grandmaster, you need to learn to think for yourself. It doesn't come from being taught every single detail what to do right or what to do wrong. Rather, it comes from exploring possibilities, asking the right questions, and being open to alternatives." And I loved that. It just kind of summed up everything that he talked about in this whole book and this whole process of even how BJJ came about. It came about because Helio had that mindset and maintained that mindset even as he was the founder and like the pinnacle of this whole martial arts system. He still was constantly looking for ways to improve and looking for ideas from other people of how to make it better. Right. So I want to talk about a couple of the principles here in just a minute, but I want to return for just a second to that physical and mental combination. Guys tend to focus either on the mental or the physical to the exclusion of the other, and to a sense that creates an elitist attitude, right? So if I'm a very physical, like you use the term jock, but if I'm a very physical guy, I tend to discount the mental side of it and the sitting down and strategizing and learning things in my head. On the flip side, the guys that are super into all the learning the stuff in their head tend to avoid getting very physical with it. And that is something that just doesn't work out in real life because nothing is only ever one thing. So success doesn't ever come from just figuring out the physical principles or just figuring out the mental principles or just figuring out a spiritual principle or an emotional principle. All of these things work together, and there's no situation in life where they are self-contained, right? Over just here by itself, and this is just a physical problem or this is just a spiritual problem. So everything is connected. And with that, the way that Rener and the team went ahead and did that in this book is they, at the beginning of every chapter, have QR codes, which lead to a video where he and his brother show the combat application of the principle that they're teaching. So there's a specific move that they want to teach you that's kind of a foundational move in Jiu Jitsu, but then also they just give this amazing visual aspect to understanding what this looks like in a physical sense. And for some reason, seeing that in the physical sense makes it so much easier to port it over into an emotional problem or a mental problem or a life problem that is, a relational problem or something like that. And so I loved how they did that in this book. But 32 principles, I don't have time to go into all of them. I pulled a couple of my favorite ones and a couple of the ones that really stuck out to me. And so the first one of those was the creation principle. And that states that beginning with the end goal in mind, we're then using targeted actions to make our vision a reality. The way that Rener talks about this is we want to be first and we want to be third. And I read that at first and I was like, what? I don't get it. I don't get what you're saying. And what he means is that we want to take an initial action that's going to cause a reaction from the other person. And then that reaction sets us up to take the secondary action, which is what we wanted to do all along. And the phrase that they used, that his grandfather actually used all the time, was he said, jiu-jitsu is a mousetrap, and the trap never chases the mouse. The trap sets up the situation where the mouse can come and do what we want it to do, which is try to get the peanut butter, and then the mousetrap slams closed and we get what we want out of it, right? So he talks all the time about we want to be first and we want to be third. I love this because immediately it made me think of the more broadly you read, the more you start to see connections between all these things. And so this one just immediately stuck out to me as relating to Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he talks about beginning with the end in mind. And it's this idea of thinking through, what do I want this to end like? And then backtracking so that I know what actions to take now. So that was the creation principle. The next one that we had was the clock principle. And this is recognizing that the right move at the wrong time is the wrong move. This really stuck out to me. I've been learning a lot about timing, especially with trying to put up YouTube videos and all this stuff. And even with this book, like one of the reasons why I got this book day of release, started reading it immediately and wanted to put up a review quickly, is because of a timing issue, because being early is better than being late, right? So even doing the right thing at the wrong time can still equate to being the wrong move. So that just really stuck out to me in just this idea of the more I look at all these different aspects of life, timing is everything. Timing matters in every situation that you're in. There is a proper time for whatever the thing is that you're wanting to do. And so just reminding myself to pay attention to this. For everything there's a season, for everything there's a time. So pay attention to what is ripe right now for this time. And in this principle, he quoted Leo Tolstoy, who I absolutely love, who had said the two most powerful warriors are patience and time. And I love that. I constantly strive to be a more patient person. And so that just stuck out to me really, really well, of like one of the most powerful warriors that you have in your arsenal is just patience and letting time run its course. So the next one that we had was the Tagalong Principle, and this is identifying trends, innovations, and opportunities that will help you reach your goal with greater efficiency. This kind of ties into this whole time thing, right? Because for me in business, what I'm realizing is it's unwise to ignore this, right? This is why I bought this book. It's unwise to ignore that there's a new something coming out that has hype around it right now that I can make a video about and I can give my opinion on and tag along to the flow and the hype of what's already coming with that. So that's one of the things that I want to change, and one of the things I want to focus on is reading books that come out right as they come out so that I can join into the conversation in an early time and take advantage of that hype and that excitement that's happening around these things. So that really stuck out to me with that. I loved also that he talks about not really the opposite, but a different variation of this principle in family life. You set the trend that you want your kids to follow. And I loved his quote. He said, leading by example isn't simply the best way to teach, it's the only way to teach. Kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. And so keeping that idea in mind and creating a life and a pattern of life that as they tag along and do what you're doing, they're going in the direction that you want them to be going. That was just a good, solid reminder for me of like, oh yeah, don't forget, like they're not going to do what you say. They're going to do what you do. So take advantage of this principle and do the things that you want them to be doing. The next one that I had was the Centerline Principle. And this is that owning your life by setting boundaries wherever they are needed. The biggest thing that stuck out to me with this was he said the challenge for most people is that they typically won't set boundaries that they are not capable of enforcing. And this is where jiu-jitsu will often make the difference. For me, that just came back to this thing of I know I have to start taking BJJ lessons. I am not confident in my ability to handle a situation unarmed. I'm not nearly as confident as I would like to be. And that creates situations where I'm held back from setting a boundary. I'm held back from saying a thing that I know I'm supposed to say. I'm held back from taking an action that I know I'm supposed to take. And so it just smacked me across the face with this idea of like, yes, this is not something to just put off. This is not a thing to take lightly. This is something that needs to be very important, that I need to be willing to put money behind, and that I need to step into regardless of it being uncomfortable and scary, right? To go in and do that. Because in order to own life, you have to be able to set those boundaries. But in order to set those boundaries, you have to be confident that you can keep those boundaries. So then the final one was the Grandmaster Principle. And this is living with the confidence of a black belt while learning with the humility of a white belt. And I love that. That is everything that I want to be and do in life. I want to have earned the confidence of a black belt, but constantly learn with the humility of a white belt and never think that I know better than the next person coming along the line. Be confident in what I know, be secure in what I know because I did the work to earn it, but not be so confident and not be willing to be humble enough that I can't learn from anyone. And again, this goes back to my favorite quote that he had. To become a grandmaster, you need to learn to think for yourself. It doesn't come from being taught every single detail, what to do right or what to do wrong. Rather, it comes from exploring possibilities, asking the right questions, and being open to alternatives. So my takeaways from this book, biggest one, nothing is only ever one thing. In these 32 principles, every single one relies on another one and touches another one in some way. And they cross-pollinate and they connect across the different domains and stuff. And there's no single time where you're only using one principle. There's no situation in life that is only a physical thing or only a spiritual thing or only an emotional thing or only a mental thing. They're all always connected in some way, shape, or form. And so the better you understand them, the better you're able to diagnose the situation and figure out what the problem is and then figure out what you need to do in order to create a solution to the problem, right? The next big takeaway that I had was just that everyone starts as a beginner. BJJ didn't even exist. And Rener Gracie is the one that like codified this whole thing into something. And then his sons all started out as kids who were beginners. And Rener started out as a beginner. And all these people that he's taught started out as beginner. Jocko Willink wrote the foreword to this book. He talks about getting schooled the very first time he went on. He had no idea. Everyone, no matter how good they are now, starts out as a beginner. And so I don't have to feel bad about the fact that I'm whatever age I am and going in and whatever state I am and whatever physical state I'm in. I don't have to feel bad about any of that because everyone starts out as a beginner. And at the beginning, we're all on a level playing field and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You just got to do it, right? So the next lesson I had was that applied knowledge can overcome inherent advantages. He talks about the Boyd belt system, which, quick story, was an older gentleman who was one of his students who was a black belt. And he came in one day and he was like, hey man, I don't feel like I deserve a black belt because I keep getting whipped by this kid in class who's a blue belt. And Rener was like, dude, this kid is 20 years younger than you and 40 pounds heavier than you. And what you need to understand is that every 10 years of youth and every 20 pounds of weight is a one belt advantage. So even though this kid is only a blue belt, you're very quickly equally stacked in this black belt range because of the inherent physical advantages that this kid has. And so he helped him reframe this thing. What you need to realize is, holy crap, look at how well you're able to stand up against this kid. Even if he wins some of the time, look at how well you're able to stand up against this guy who's 20 years younger than you and 40 pounds heavier than you, right? And that led into this last point where the whole point of this is not to win necessarily. The point is not to just completely destroy the other person. The point is not to be the winner every time and just crush the young people, crush the losers every time and feel great about myself and how badass I am, right? The way that I would say this is that the point is to live well. Right? And the first part is we have to live, like we have to survive. So if there is an actual real life violent encounter, like the very first point is I have to survive. So either hopefully I can just get out of it and not even have to deal with it in the first place, right? I avoided the fight completely. But if that was not possible, then I was able either to de-escalate it, or if it really did come to blows and come to the ground and everything, I was able to keep myself safe, subdue the other guy, and then through whatever means, end the fight. So the first point is I have to live, right? I have to get to today, to tomorrow, or whatever lessons I learned don't matter, right? And then the second part of that is the well part. It's I want to be someone who's adding value to the world. I want to be someone who's adding value to other people's life. I want to be someone whose life means more than just, oh, I'm here, right? So the point is to live well. These principles in this book will help you do that. They are so good. They're so well put together. I cannot stress highly enough how great it is to have the combination of those videos and the combination of the physical and the mental side of this in this book. It really is unique to any other book that I've ever read, and I really cannot recommend it highly enough. If you guys are interested in it at all, please go get a copy of it. It's so, so good. You will not regret it. I can promise you. So that's all I have for today. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell notification so you get notified whenever I put out new episodes. And I hope you guys are having a great day. Let me know if you read this book. I would love to know your comments about it. Please leave me a comment. And if you do jiu-jitsu, let me know what your experience has been. What belt are you? How long you've been doing it? I would love to get to know some more because I am very, very excited and I really want to get into this myself. And so I'm starting to look at places around here that I can learn. And yeah, I would just love to hear about your journey if this is something you're into. So I hope you're having a great day. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.